Very much, Gina, and brought to everybody by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 west of Heyburn. All the best of tools and equipment you need for this spring, for the lawn, the garden, everything. Just give them a call, 678-3122. K&R Rental, 256 South, 600 west of Heyburn. Thank you very much. And, of course, as we roll along here this morning, I also want to acknowledge the fact that Ramsey Heating and Electric, oh my goodness sakes, such good people serving you at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. The number to call is 678-0459. They're open 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday for all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs. Don't forget to work with the best. They have stood the test of time, going into now 7 decades, serving you, Ramsey Heating and Electric. Thank you very much. Oh, and by the way, I'm trying to get an update on Kevin Butcher at Daryl's Cleaners. I certainly hope and pray he is healing up, and they'll be back in business and rolling before too long. Wonderful people at Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley, and they've got a Facebook GoFundMe page for Kevin after that bad fall, and also they're going to have a little bit of a, I think, auction for him at the Nostalgia Cafe, so we wish him the very best. Hope everything's going well. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Again, we've got an abbreviated first hour due to the fact that we had a transmitter blow up, and they're on it. They've got it taken care of, and I think we're back on the air almost full power, if not full power. I'm still trying to get all my headsets and everything put on here this morning. So at first we thought we wouldn't be on the air. Now we are on the air, and your calls are appreciated. So give us a jingle quickly. Before we do the weather, we just did the weather once. We're going to try to do it again in a little bit. Kent McClellan for Minidoka County Commissioner. Don't forget, May 19th primary. It is a idahovotes.gov with a balloting mail-in primary election. Kent wants your vote. He wants to return and serve you more as Minidoka County Commissioner. Here's a man that's been the Mini-Cassia Veterans Board as an advisor and liaison with the county. He was not a vet personally, but he serves those that were. Good guy. Keep him in office as Minidoka County Commissioner Kent McClellan. Don't forget to vote for him in the primaries May 19th. Paid for by John A. Burt Stevenson. Thank you very much. Calls are welcome and appreciated as we roll along here this morning in somewhat of an abbreviated first hour, and I'd sure like to hear from you. While we have just a moment, if we could, Wheels, could we have the good word for the May 19th primaries?
Be sure to mail in your May 19th primary election ballots. Here's Speaker of the House, Scott Bedke.
The primary election on May 19th is quickly approaching. You should all have received a ballot request form in the mail. Fill it out and send it in. Then you will get the official ballot back to you in the mail. Read the directions carefully and fill it out. Put it in the envelope, and don't forget to sign the envelope and send it in. It's just that easy. Paid for by Bedkeeper Idaho.
Wheels, I've got to have a lot more volume in my headsets. I can't hardly hear when the spots are ending, so you've got to boost that up if you can. If it's able to be boosted, please send it to me if you would. I want to also remind you about our dear friend, and that's Bob Cuno, and he wants you to remember he's running for Cassia County Commissioner, District 2, and here's a man with conservative principles, constructive ideas, proactive leadership, and wants good county government, and he has done so. He wants to serve you again with an attitude that he'll approach the office of Cassia County Commissioner with an open mind and desire to serve the people of Cassia County. Don't forget, mail-in ballots, May 19th primary. Vote for Bob Cuno, Cassia County Commissioner, District 2. Thank you very much. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Sir. Hey, what are you feeling about their starting to name the names of people that unmasked General Flynn?
Just a minute. Hold on, Doug. I can bear. You're a whisper to me coming down the line. I don't know. Wheels, please boost Doug up. I can't hardly hear him. Thank you. I think you said something about the unmasking of people. Repeat that again, please.
They're going to declassify the names of the people that unmasked General Flynn.
I think it's long overdue.
I do too. And I think that's why President Obama came out the other day. I think they're getting nervous. But President Obama made a statement that it's going to diminish the rule of law if General Flynn doesn't go to jail. But he forgets to remember when he pardoned a general for lying and was convicted of it, and he pardoned him.
Yeah, well, let's just back up again. What rule of law was broken? I mean, that's an open-end question, because I've done some study on this, and I found out that if there's anything been broken or dishonest, it was the way that NBC television network picked up a conversation and an interview with Attorney General Bill Barr, and they resculpted the interview and changed the verbiage so that it would just show a negative side to this rule of law question. And when questioned about it, NBC had to come out and say, yeah, we altered the tape so it made Bill Barr look bad. Oh, gee, we're sorry. And they said that in a very limited vein. That's the construction and the illegality of the left. These people are crooks and criminals.
They are. And the media is complicit with them. You know, and I mentioned the other day where some of them got Pulitzer Prizes for their journalism on Russia, you know, the President Trump colluding with Russia. And now is known that there is none. All of the Obama's officials that were in that closed-door hearings, and when they were asked what collusion we haven't seen any.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any.
Yeah. And here's something else too. Obama, Biden, and many others, Susan Rice, Comey, all of them have met behind closed doors to make a very clandestine effect to the campaign and the election of Donald Trump for the presidency. And I think this thing is going to show a very deepening chasm that is going to be totally illegal, and we're going to see heads roll. And quite frankly, I'd like to see them portrayed on the alley behind a bunch of bowling pins.
Exactly. And the jury of their peers should be across the United States, not just Washington, D.C.
Amen.
Because their crimes were committed against America, not just Washington, D.C.
Amen. I'll tell you what, we're going to see, I think, a lot of things happen. There are over 2,000 lug nuts, people that I would say are not real smart, in the Department of Justice that signed a petition yesterday to have Attorney General Bill Barr resign and or be thrown out of his office for not following the rule of law. And all the lawyers that I have listened to and the things that I've read since yesterday said that he is absolutely, even Judge Napolitano on television, a former federal judge, has said that he followed the rule of law right to the letter, and he, Napolitano, and Bill Barr have not always got along.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It needs to be people who want the best for America, not to cover up their illicit actions. And all of America that prays, that believes in God, needs to pray that we get back to equal justice under the law.
Amen. Doug, as you know, I've got an abbreviated 15 minutes here. I've got to run like a racehorse to get everything in, so I appreciate your call, old buddy, and thanks for your help before the program started. Thank you so much.
You betcha, and let's take care of our senior centers, everybody.
All right.
Do what we can to support them.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate your call. Don't forget, we've got a big doings going on this Thursday, Zebeth Ranch, along with the Minnecasia Chamber of Commerce, Penny, Maine. We're having a parking lot picnic at Denny's Restaurant at 611 North Overland in Burley. Y'all come. It's going to be a lot of fun from 11:30 to 1. Sit in your vehicles. They're going to bring the food right out to you. The special picnic for that day is a club sandwich with fries and then a fountain drink. Don't forget, that's at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. This Thursday from 11:30 to 1. We urge you to be there, and let's help support this restaurant, and we'll be doing more to make sure that they all try to stay in business. You bet your life. Also, quickly, I want to acknowledge my dear friend that I just talked to, and that's Doug Martin. He's got a business for sale. You better believe it. And what an opportunity for you. You you, Mr. Fix-It and Repairman out in the audience. Doug's alternator and starter repair is for sale. At 635 21st Street in Heyburn. And Doug is selling the business, and it's a turnkey operation. In other words, it's ready. All you got to do is put the key in the lock and turn it. You're in business, man. And he will also train the buyer of the business of rebuilding starters and repair, etc. Please get a hold of them at 878-4991 or 431-5282. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, 635 21st Street in Heyburn. Good old boy. He was just on the air with us. And also, our thanks go out to our friends at Dino Septic Service. As you know, they are doing the job that you and I don't want to do. No, you don't want to be messing around with the septic tank pumping and the liquid waste removal and, of course, the sewer and sink drain lines cleaning and all that. Well, they do, and they do a tremendous job. I urge you to call for fast, fare-friendly service, 436-6526 or 678-1638. Dino's Septic Service, absolutely the best serving you. Wheels, we're going to do something a little unorthodox right now. We're going to have another weather forecast, if you could please, in just a moment, and it's sponsored by our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And, of course, they're located right behind the Minidoka Hospital across from the emergency room, and the number to call, 312-0957. If you would, my dear friend, let's have the weather forecast one more time.
We've got a storm system moving in, and it's going to hang around for the rest of the week. Here's a look at your weather forecast. By this afternoon, looks like showers and thunderstorms are going to be the norm. Partly sunny skies. We are expecting a high of 68. Winds could gust as high as 25 miles an hour by tonight. Mostly cloudy skies with a low right around 44. Gusts as high as 28 miles an hour. By tomorrow, 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms by the afternoon. Mostly cloudy skies. Still going to be windy. High of 61 with an overnight low of 44. Thursday looks like rain showers, at least for most of the day. 50% chance of showers, maybe some thunderstorms by the afternoon. Cloudy skies and a high of 62. That's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Gina, I appreciate it, and brought to everybody by Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. If you've noticed a diminishment in your hearings, don't you put it off. You give them a call today at 312-0957. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Possibly, underline the word possibly, Major League Baseball might start up on the 4th of July. They may go into an abbreviated spring training in June, and maybe we'll see some baseball games starting on the 4th of July. However, without the fans in the stands, at least for a while, and then maybe they can rectify that and we can start getting back to a sense of normalcy. I'm doing this all on an abbreviated fashion for the first hour, so bear with us. I also want to acknowledge our friends at Berry Equipment and Rental, Sales, Service, and Parts at 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, and the Nampa location for all your equipment like the Bobcats, all the different sizes, the trenchers, the scissor lifts, all the Doosan wheel loaders and excavators, everything for you at Berry Equipment and Rental, Burley, Twin Falls, and Nampa. Holy moly, we're going to run to the news right now. Wheels, we got them all in, and right now it's time for the news from CBS. I'll be back in 7 minutes. Woo! Oh, welcome back, and kind of a odd Tuesday. We've had some mechanical and technical problems with the transmitter, and everybody's running around with a screwdriver and a wrench in their hands this morning. Good morning, Zeb at the Ranch, and of course, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you in a safe, clean environment and the best in tires. Stop in and see your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers today. Along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. I have no idea what the phone's ringing for, but I'll tell you this much. Let's have this good word for Western Waste.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Don't you forget that I urge you to get on the route service. Call them and say, hey, we're new in the area. We'd like to be on the route service once a week. They'll come by, get your garbage. It's all picked up, gone. It's out of there. Call them at 734-6969. Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Wheels, could we please find out some more about our May 19th primaries, please?
Be sure to mail in your May 19th primary election ballots. Here's Representative Fred Wood.
Hopefully everyone eligible to vote has requested their absentee ballot from their county clerk by this time. If not, please do so soon. When you receive your absentee ballot packet, fill out your ballot. Next, carefully read and follow the instructions regarding the process of ballot in the gold envelope in the white envelope, and signing the white envelope. Then mail the white signed envelope. Paid Fred Wood Campaign.
Thank you, Fred. And also, I want to urge everybody, we're kind of catching up from the first hour of being off, so bear with us if you would. I want to remind everybody about our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Hello, Nick Greenwell and all the outstanding physical therapists over there to help you and guide you back down the road to being you again. That's right. Recouping from a surgery or an accident. They know all the exercises. Oh, my goodness, they are good. Call them, please. Make an appointment, 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Absolutely the best. Real quick note, too, before we go to our guest, I hate to have him hanging on the line, but stand by, Dan. I'll be right there. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. Oh, with our dear, dear friend Joel Heward, his family, and his staff. And when someone passes, it's a very hard time on everyone. And I'll guarantee you that Hanson Mortuary will do all they can to ease everyone's stress, always with the highest ethical standards and unquestioned integrity. Please remember the number, 436-5636, Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, with Joel Heward. And Joel also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. Well, it's Tuesday, and we get a chance to visit with a dear, dear friend of mine, and that's Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
I'm fine, Zeb. Glad to hear you got your tower back up, and I'm having a little difficulty with the line this morning.
Well, I apologize, and hopefully my engineer can ride that gain a little bit so that you can hear me. Dan, one of the things that we never hear in this election procedure is what are the candidates going to do? And I know this is a special year, and Biden's in the basement, and President Trump is every day having to deal with this sickly, pathetic coronavirus. But we never hear anybody really address energy the way it should be addressed, about what are we going to do really with energy that is not reliable, whether it's solar or whether it's wind. How are we going to power America? What about the trucks? What about the traffic? What about the people getting to work? What about the farmers? What about the tractors? Nobody ever addresses that.
Well, you're right, Zeb. There hasn't been a lot of talk about it because of the COVID and the fact that it's been absorbing all of the news. And, of course, what's happened in the oil business, oil and gas business in the United States is the biggest significant drop in decades. I mean, what's happened is people have stopped using oil and gas largely because they're shut at home.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's beginning to creep back up, the overall picture of energy isn't being discussed. And by and large, the people that are discussing it are people who want to push more of this green energy. And I was just reading a story this morning about how in Mexico, the government is actually shutting down its green energy because they're afraid it's going to collapse the grid. They're no longer allowing wind and solar farms to hook up to their electricity grid because of the things that we've discussed before, that when you operate something that's supposed to be there whenever we need it, will show up. And it's almost like the economy. I mean, if you think of it, Zeb, if nobody shows up for work, the economy is going to suffer. Well, the grid's the same way. If it only shows up for work when it feels like it, and yet we need it when it isn't there, we have to make all kinds of adjustments. And they talk about all kinds of crazy exotic things like battery backup and that sort of deal, but it's outrageously expensive. I mean, people have no concept of how much energy we use when our economy is humming. And some of that damage is being hidden right now because consumption of energy across the board has gone down since we basically unplugged our manufacturing plants and a lot of other big consumers. All those office buildings in New York, they're not sucking any energy because everyone's sitting at home. And so it has to be addressed. Right now, it's not being.
You know, I doubt seriously that the Democrats are going to be able to or want to stage a convention this summer that will show any negativity whatsoever. They're all going to be standing up there going about what a great success story green energy is. They're going to be touting this and touting that. But really, before the election in November, there has to be an accounting. There has to be a finger pointing at both candidates as to where we are, how are we going to get through this, and what the future looks like. And nobody's holding their feet to the fire.
Well, we're talking about it, Zeb, but we're a little tiny little voice. The fact of the matter is, we have to look at this comprehensively. I mean, a lot of people are beginning to question whether it makes sense to get all this stuff we've been getting from China. And the White House announced a policy last week that is going to have an impact on this, but it didn't get any press. And that's that the president asked the Commerce Department to look into how much of our electricity products are coming from China, basically the large transformers and switches and things like that. And as it turns out, slowly but surely the Chinese have taken over that market as companies have offshored into China just the way they did our drug market. And so what he's looking for is for them to uncover just exactly how much of this, which has direct relevance for the renewable energy, because China makes 80+% of the world's solar panels, and on top of that, they control, for example, we get a lot of solar panels into the United States from Malaysia, interestingly enough, that makes them. But those are all Chinese, red Chinese, communist-owned companies that have built plants in Malaysia, making them and shipping them. So when you follow it all back, it sort of makes, I've always wondered, does it make sense for us to be taking Chinese products? They always tell us we have to worry about the grid and people tapping into the grid and cybersecurity and that sort of thing, because if they could flip a switch and make our grid go down, we'd really be in tough shape. That's one of the things that is actually working for the most part right now is our grid, and with everybody sitting at home with their freezers full or their refrigerators full or trying to be full, the idea that someone could shut off our power, and the Chinese are making huge component parts that are being purchased and shipped on ships into the United States, and they've been doing more and more of that. And so the Trump administration is looking into this to find out exactly what the extent of this is and what the ownership of the Chinese Communist government is.
You know, I'm sitting here listening to you, and you know all these facts and particulars and various stories of what's going on in energy. And I'm just a simple old talk show host out here in Idaho, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, China has shipped over all these drones that they're giving to our police departments. Oh, okay, sounds wonderful. What a nice gift. And then, of course, the Chinese are using the information that's obtained on these drones for basically spying techniques on America. They have complete control of our medicine. They have complete control over our solar panels and power, and complete control over so many other items. China is so intrusive into our everyday life. Where do these liberal loons, the Democrats, come up with Russia, Russia, Russia? I'm scared to death of China.
Well, yeah, I think it's finally dawning on people that this idea that you know, if we just treated the Chinese nice, that they would respond in kind and be nice to us is absurd. I mean, the Chinese, listen, until the English became the factory for the world, before the United States surpassed England and became the factory of the world. I mean, and it's an interesting historical thing. The fact of the matter is, the British were running out of trees and had to discover another energy source, and they found a much more concentrated form of energy in the form of coal to be able to run the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution wasn't an industrial revolution so much as it was an energy revolution. They stopped taking things from the surface of the earth and started using things from below the surface because it's much more concentrated, much more powerful. And with a small population, you could make lots of things with machinery and basically run the world. If you had a level playing field, it'd all be about population, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have twice as many hands, you get twice as much work done. China has 4 times as many hands as we do. So they can do more work, but we actually do more work because we use energy to amplify human strength. It's the difference between trying to plow a field with an ox or using a 300 horsepower tractor. Same for pumping water, same for everything else. The idea that the Chinese want to stay behind the United States and not be number one just fails at logic of any kind. And it's about time we started doing this. And I'll tell you this, President Trump is the only major politician that has been talking about this, and he's been talking about it for decades.
You're right.
He's been saying we're getting our clocks cleaned by the Chinese. They're taking us to the cleaners here, and we've got to look at this. And yet, and it didn't really matter. Republican Democrat administration, they sort of said, well, we'll take the worst part of the deal because if we treat the Chinese nice, they'll be nice to us. Well, that's not the way the world works.
Dan, do you think we're at a point of complete fear, F-E-A-R, of China, to the point where you don't want to kick a sleeping dog on the porch for fear he might turn around and bite you? Is that really what's going on today? Are we afraid of China, not only economically, but militarily, that we're going to let that dog lay on the porch and not bother him? Is that really what's going on?
not yet, Zeb, but that's why it's important that we act now. The point is the Chinese system is a communist system, basically. Now it's run and they let their companies run free and everything else, but it's all centrally controlled. And history has shown us that these systems don't do well over the long run. They just don't. They fail to deliver the things that people need in a way that they need them. And so, but it is very, very important that people be aware. And one thing that coronavirus has done is made people aware, because everyone sitting around the coffee table or churches, if their local governments let them, are saying, I had no idea that all of our drugs came from China.
Yeah.
How did that happen? When did that happen? Well, it happened over several decades of policies in the United States that made it easier to go and build the factories over there to make the drugs for us than it was to do it here.
I am just really concerned as to where we're at and how we're ever going to turn around. And we have a caller waiting. And caller, quickly, I've got about 4 minutes left in the segment. Go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Zeb, I'll ask this question to Dan. And just recently, this morning, I read this. Apparently, the Trump administration has approved some public land northeast of Las Vegas for a solar farm, which the main names in this is Harry Reid, Warren Buffett, and the people that are going to construct this is an Australian group, but I couldn't find where these panels were going to be built for this large project going on. And I think this has been in discussion for several years now, and I'll see if Dan can answer that question for me.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Earl. Appreciate it. Dan, are you aware of that solar project northeast of Las Vegas? I am, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I just read about it. And good question from your listener. I don't know about where the solar panels are, although I think you have to do the math and do the figuring. And if the majority of them come from either China or Chinese-controlled places, we have to assume that a lot of that equipment is coming from China or China-controlled companies building them in other places. That's something I'll look into and see if I can find out. It's interesting that in many cases they don't have to reveal their sources for these things, which I think is terrible, and it's a question that they ought to be asking. The reason they're doing it on the BLM lands is because there have been laws passed requiring the Department of Interior to allow the construction of these things if they don't see any, I'm going to put my fingers up, quote, environmental problems with relationship to it. So we'll see what happens with this. A lot of these farms have been announced and then not followed through on.
Absolutely. You know, Dan, again, it sounds so simplified. When we talk about energy, we have, underline that word have, an excellent energy program. We have hydroenergy, we have the fossil fuels, the fracking, everything, and we are leading the world and can for hundreds of years with what we have underfoot that God gave us in this country. It's lunacy to me to try to convert into a very unreliable form of energy and put us possibly at risk to the entire world.
Yeah, Zeb, I mean, a person doesn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that, because I'm not, to figure out that if you've got something in great abundance right under your own feet, you probably don't go searching around the world for it, especially buying it from people who don't necessarily have your best interests in mind.
Absolutely.
And so that's a problem solved. You don't have to sit around wasting time worrying about, gee, how much of this should we allow them to have when we've got plenty to service our own needs, thank the good Lord and the hard work of Americans who produce that. And so you just have to slap your head occasionally and say, what is wrong with these people?
Yeah.
Why don't they see this? And the only thing I can conclude is that dollar bills mean more to them than the red, white, and blue.
Absolutely.
And I just don't understand it for the life of me. Take care of your, charity begins at home. Take care of our own people. They need to work. Lord knows they need to work. Let them make the energy, and let the Chinese make their own energy, or figure out who to sell it to, and rather than this current system, which seems to look askance. Like I say, they're looking into it, and we should begin to see some actions on that. But it's about time we woke up before it's too late.
Amen. Amen. Dan, I want to apologize to you. We've had kind of a disrupted schedule here this morning with the problems with the transmitter and everything, but you have come through like gangbusters, and we really appreciate everything you do. On behalf of the American Energy Alliance, a dear friend of this program, Dan Kish. God bless you, man. Stay safe, stay well. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
God bless, Ed. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Very good friend and a very knowledgeable friend about energy, and that's Dan Kish. Thank you very much. Once again, I want to remind you that Robert Cuno is running for commissioner, Cassia County Commissioner for District 2. Absolutely. He wants to focus on what's important, of course, and he's 10 years of unprecedented economic growth in Cassia County, hundreds of new jobs in Cassia County. Bob has oversaw the Judicial Center renovations, and the Cassia County is completely debt-free. He's proud of that. He should be. Robert Cuno, Cassia County Commissioner, District 2, wants your vote on May 19th in the primaries. Remember, it's a mail-in ballot. Get your ballots in now for May 19th, and vote for Robert Cuno for Cassia County Commissioner in District 2. Thank you very much. Wow. As I said, it's been kind of a disrupted morning, but we're gaining speed, and we want to remind you about what's taking place on Thursday. Don't forget, great big parking lot picnic at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. My, this is going to be a lot of fun. First of its kind, and I want to say thanks to Penny Main and the Chamber of Commerce, Minnecasia Chamber of Commerce, for helping us get this all put together. And it's going to be 11:30 to 1 at Denny's Restaurant with Thomas and the crew. And you drive in, and they've got a special for the day. It's going to be a club sandwich with fries, and then you can get a fountain drink or whatever. And the people from Denny's will run out, bring you the order, and then they'll take the money. I mean, it's just going to be kind of fun. We're all going to sit in our vehicles in the parking lot and have a great big parking lot picnic, honk our horns at each other and everything else. So y'all come. Danny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, Thursday for the parking lot picnic from 11:30 to 1. We'll see you there. I guarantee it. Real quick before we go to the phone line, I want to remind you too, boy, with everything going on in the world, you just got to get away. I mean, you got to get on a four-wheeler or a side-by-side and get out of Dodge City, I'm telling you. And I know the place to go if you don't have a four-wheeler or a side-by-side, and that's Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 9 to 2, and believe me, they've got rebates on their side-by-sides and their four-wheelers. They've got all the accessories over there that you could possibly want, and a great service department. Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and it's true, this is where the fun is sold. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line. Old Wheels over at the station's been doing a jam-up job keeping everything together this morning, and we're going to have with the Pacific Legal Foundation a person that's been on before with us, Wen Fa. Good morning, Wen. How are you?
Zeb, good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
It's been one of those days, Wen. I'm telling you, man, I'm going to go mix something with the grapefruit juice and the orange juice, but we're back on the air and we're doing well. Thank you, sir. I hope all is well with the Pacific Legal Foundation.
Certainly, we are trucking through these difficult times. As you can see, there's a lot of laws and regulations and things that hamper economic productivity and getting America back on track. And we're willing to stand up and fight those things in court if necessary and protect the constitutional rights of all Americans.
Amen. Wen, I'm not really that up on the topic that we're going to talk about. As far as in layman's terms, I've got my own attitude and opinions on it. But I wanted you to talk a little bit about affirmative action and explain how it came into being, what it has done, and why, in many cases, it's not a good thing. If you'd explain that like that, I'd appreciate it from my audience.
Sure thing, Zeb. I prefer to use the term racial preferences because affirmative action, as it was originally used, was a term that was used to connote programs that ensured outreach and access to information. But now it's being used in place of racial preferences, and I think that's one of the things that's very wrong and offensive, not just to the Constitution of the United States, but racial preferences are also fundamentally unjust and contrary to our notions of individualism. So one thing that I am particularly interested in the field is the area of public contracting. So when the government builds roads and schools and hospitals, it doesn't build those things itself. It contracts with private companies to build those things for the citizens of the state. But in many instances all across the country, governments have imposed laws that call for racial preferences and racial set-asides in building these roads and highways and hospitals. Basically, these set-asides will say something like 30% of the dollars on this construction project have to go to businesses certified as minority-owned businesses. And that's something that's fundamentally wrong and unjust. We believe in individualism in this country. We don't believe that there should be racial preferences and racial quotas that limit the ability of hardworking entrepreneurs to compete.
You know, when I'm sitting here listening, and if I get off the rails a little bit on this subject, guide me back on the tracks. But one of the worst things that I thought happened in the National Football League was the Rooney Rule. And that was after Art Rooney, the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, to where they passed this rule basically that you had to interview so many people of so many different skin colors, black, brown, whatever, and they were trying to up more of the the black coaches and more of the other race coaches into the system. I think that's dead wrong. You should hire the best person for the job and let it go that way, right?
I certainly agree that you should hire the best person for the job. I think the racial quotas in contracting are actually much worse because, one, they're government-imposed laws. The NFL, I think, is a private association. And second, these set-aside laws in contracting, they actually determine who gets the job and who doesn't. It would be one thing, I think, if, a law said interview a certain number of candidates. I still don't think that would be constitutional. But I think it's far worse to say that you have to hire a certain number of people of a certain race. You have to hire a certain number of Asians. You have to hire a certain number of whites and a certain number of Hispanics. And I think that's one of the things that's wrong with racial quotas. A lot of people think about racial quotas as setting a lower limit, but they also set a higher limit. People, no matter what their race, should have all the opportunities to get a job, regardless of their race.
Yeah.
And racial quotas prevent individuals from doing that.
Well, Gwen, explain to me this. I noticed in the little information sheet that I have, when we're talking about general contractors to do various jobs of whether it's road building or building buildings, local schools, whatever the case might be, what about the red tape with all of this affirmative action? I mean, would they literally hold up construction until A, they could find someone of that particular race or whatever and give them the job? I mean, what kind of paperwork and headaches does this cause?
Absolutely. There is a lot of red tape and there's a lot of fraud. So in terms of red tape, the government in the cities and states with minority business programs generally require contractors to pay more money for minority subcontractors, even if that would add additional cost to the job, which then would, besides having the contractor lose a job because of its race, would also increase the costs for the taxpayers. There's also a lot of red tape in getting certified as a minority-owned business. Some of these programs are extraordinarily complex, and companies literally have to hire lawyers and teams of attorneys just to get the government to say that they're a minority-owned business. Beyond that, there's also a lot of fraud. You hear stories all the time across the United States about people, for example, a business that's actually owned by a man, but he passes the title of the ownership to his wife, who isn't involved in the day-to-day, all to get an advantage in contracting. And I think the programs that call for preferences, racial preferences, general preferences, they encourage this type of fraud, which in the end harms everybody.
Well, what do you do in a situation, and I don't mean to beleaguer this point, but I find this absolutely stupid that we've allowed affirmative action to take over in this regard. But what do you do in a situation to where, let's say you're out in the middle of nowhere, down by Tonopah, Nevada or something, and you need to get a construction expert company in a certain regard, and there are none of a various race and or color in the immediate area? Do you hold up the entirety of the job until you can bring somebody or freight somebody in from another area?
Well, I've certainly heard stories of general contractors bringing in subcontractors from different areas, all in order to meet the quota. So it's certainly something that at least there's anecdotal evidence of. And I think that's just another reason why these minority-owned business programs are very harmful. They don't ensure that the schools and the roads and the hospitals are built to the best quality. They subvert those goals in the name of racial quotas. And racial quotas are contrary to the notion of free enterprise and individualism that make America great.
Now, has the Labor Department and this Trump administration, have they, I hate to use the word suspended, but have they looked at and said nay on a lot of these things? What's the current status of affirmative action, the way it's being handled?
So the current administration has suspended some of its affirmative action policies. They did so in March, and currently the suspensions, those regulations will be suspended until June. And the reason they did that is very unsurprising. They know that construction is very important. They know that public contracting is very important, even outside of construction, because after all, public contracting is used to get important medical supplies such as masks, such as different protective gear, testing kits, and other important medical supplies that are desperately needed in these uncertain times today. And so the current administration has suspended many of its affirmative action programs, And what I discuss in my op-ed with the Washington Examiner is I think states and cities that also contract with private companies for these important medical supplies need to really consider doing the same thing.
Right. Now, explain to me your involvement on behalf of the Pacific Legal Foundation. What are you doing, or what do you hope to achieve?
Well, we have an important practice group that tries to ensure that everybody has the right to equality before the law. I've litigated with many of my colleagues in a lot of different places, mainly dealing with the right of students to be free from racial discrimination in education. And we've represented recently 7 Black and Hispanic families in Hartford, Connecticut, who were denied access to school because of a racial quota up there. We've represented Asian American students in New York who have been denied access to schools because the mayor believed that there were too many Asians in those schools. But now I think one of the areas that we're very interested in advancing the constitutional rights of Americans is the area of public contracting. And that's an area in which you have thousands of hardworking entrepreneurs who try to earn a living, who try to produce the best quality they can for everyday Americans. And a lot of them are unable to do so because of government-imposed roadblocks that discriminate them on the basis of race. That's wrong, and that's unconstitutional under the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, and our goal is to ensure that those people have their constitutional rights.
Isn't it absolutely a ridiculous crime against all of us, that government has to step in and regulate or try to regulate who can get a job and who can't? I mean, this is ridiculous. I go back to what I said originally. The best people for the job, pay them well, and everybody's happy.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. When you go to a market, you don't, you ask. That's what you ask. If you ever gone to a food market, or if you ever shop for a product, you think about who is giving me the best product for the best price. You don't think about, is this business a minority-owned business? What is the race of the owner of this other business? You think about the best quality product for the best price. And by the way, these minority business programs actually hurt everybody. They hurt minority businesses as well. To go back to your NFL example, I'm a football fan too. There are a lot of great head coaches and coordinators who are minorities that would be coaches and coordinators in the NFL without the Rooney Rule. And as the Supreme Court has noted, these racial preferences really subvert the individual accomplishments of those people as well, because they imply that they wouldn't have made it as far as they did without racial preferences, and in a lot of cases that's just not true.
The one thing that bothers me, and I'm an old man when I've been on this earth a long time, but I always try to meet people and accept people regardless of their color of their skin. I think that's sickening to put any kind of a judgment on people for that. I treat people the way they treat me and the way they treat different situations. And to create the affirmative action program, these are my words, you can disagree if you wish, I think just does nothing more to stir up animosity and create more of a worsening of race relations in any country. Would you agree?
I think that the creation of these programs are very, very contrary to the American notion of individualism. In a lot of other countries, you have these sorts of group-based politics, and no matter how well-intended they are, they always turn out poorly. And the great thing about America is people live as individuals. People don't say, well, this is the accomplishment of my racial group. They say things like, this is my accomplishment. This is what I've done. And everybody can say that in America. And that's the great thing about this country. And I think that's the thing that we should be promoting, individualism. not group politics.
Absolutely. You are always welcome on this program. You do a wonderful job on behalf of the Pacific Legal Foundation. Wen Fa, the attorney, thank you. God bless you, sir, and please come back in the near future.
Thanks for having me on again, Jeff.
Thank you, sir. Very interesting conversation about, fortunately, the federal government suspending a lot of its affirmative action requirements and should have never started in the first place, as far as I'm concerned. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to go right now to the weather forecast. And the weather this hour is brought to us by our friends, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane and Company. And like you hear me say every day on my program, they are the professionals. Absolutely the professionals in providing accounting services to the Mini-Cassia area and beyond for over 50 years. What a great staff of professionals with the best of tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, retirement planning, all of this and more for you, your family, and your business. We're pretty high on them. They've done a lot of great work for us, the professionals. Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We've got a storm system moving in, and it's going to hang around for the rest of the week. Here's a look at your weather forecast. By this afternoon, looks like showers and thunderstorms are going to be the norm. Partly sunny skies. We are expecting a high of 68. Winds could gust as high as 25 miles an hour by tonight. Mostly cloudy skies with a low right around 44. Gusts as high as 28 miles an hour. By tomorrow, 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms by the afternoon. Mostly cloudy skies. Still going to be windy. High of 61 with an overnight low of 44. Thursday looks like rain showers, at least for most of the day. 50% chance of showers, maybe some thunderstorms by the afternoon. Cloudy skies and a high of 62. That's a look at your weather at 4 Devitt Durant.
You know, the way the weather has been lately, and I'm sure a lot of you folks would concur with me, that wind, I am so sick of the wind. I can take the rain. I can take the sun. I can take the warm. I can take the cold, but I get sick of the wind. Our weather brought to you by the real professionals, and they help many, many, many people and businesses, and that's, of course, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And I urge you to get a hold of them today. Offices at 620 5th Street in Rupert and 1710 Overland in Burley. The professionals, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. You know, folks, I had quite a few phone calls yesterday on my cell phone, which I readily give out to people if they want to call me, 312-2976. I don't hide. I take the calls. But we cannot close up again. I had a lot of conversations yesterday to a person, male and female. Everybody agreed that we cannot close up again. If this virus has a second time, if you will, and comes back with somewhat of a vengeance again, we can't close up again. Life is a risk. I want to say this because I got to get it off my chest again. Life is a risk. It's a risk every day you get out of bed, every day you go to work, every day you do something, every day you might go boating, fishing, whatever it might be. It's a risk. And we right now, economically, and let's look at the bottom line, we are on an economic cliff that with a little pushing could put us into, as a country, a total depression. A depression that would be absolutely phenomenal as far as its size and magnitude and its hurting for the future. We can't afford that. We cannot afford that. There are so many people suffering by not going to work. There are so many people suffering because they can't open the doors of their business. The suicide rate is escalating. It's a heinous thing to talk about. But it's escalating. People have lost their hope and they're wanting to go to work and they're wanting to try to succeed. Suicide rates are escalating. Despair and desperation are setting in. Marriages are breaking up. And we've lost our educational facilities. We've lost the teaching. I mean, you think about it. Our food production is at risk right now. The chain from the field to the table is really a weak link right now, and it's something that we can't close up again. Our medical care, our surgeries, heart and kidney treatments, diabetes, transportation problems, as I said, education. We cannot allow this country to close up again. Your thoughts. Give me a call. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. For those that say, oh, we got to stay home. Well, you can look out the window and watch the birds fly. Baloney. Everybody's business is essential. This is what drives me nuts. I said this from the get-go. You can check the records. Every business is essential. Sure, we need to take precautions. Sure, we need to take safety measures. But every business is essential. Speaking of businesses that are essential, don't forget our friends at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. The best of life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and more by people that are really, really dedicated to serving you. Absolutely. I mean, when I call up over there, Todd and the rest of the folks, they are right there, Johnny on the spot to take care of you. Number to call, 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. I'm going to cough. Stand by. I'm sorry. I couldn't wait. The number again, as I choke through this, 436-4424. The very best, Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Woo! When you feel a cough or a sneeze coming on when you're on live radio, it's Katie bar the door. Got to have a sip of water. Got some ice cold water here. Hold on. That helped. That really helped. Now, what else would help is if you give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. There's risk in everything we do, There's risk in everything that we are a part of 24/7, 365. But there's also, like I said, the risk of thousands and, very unfortunately, millions with thoughts of suicide, depression, broken marriages, despair, and financial ruin. Those are numbers of people that are on the absolute verge of absolutely sitting down and saying, I can't do it anymore. We have to consider them. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Now, we're hearing rumors and rumbles, and I called some of my people back in Washington, D.C. that helped supply me with a lot of information. Kamala Harris may be, some are saying, emerging as Biden's top vice presidential pick. Remember him and her, they kind of went head-to-head over a busing question when they were having the Democratic debates. And, boy, I mean, there was a lot of fire, hail, and brimstone between those two up on the stage for a few moments. But Joe in the basement, not doing anything, and he tried to have that virtual town hall rally, and the technical people that put this together absolutely didn't know wire A from wire B, and it was one of the worst put together virtual programs on the computer that you could ever see or listen to on the internet. Joe Biden is absolutely falling 100% short of doing or projecting anything positive for his campaign. And then to hear that he might pick Kamala Harris, boy, there's a negative, I'll tell you. That would be a blessing, I think a gift to the White House and the Trump administration. I really do. Don't forget, we're going to be over at Denny's Restaurant this Thursday from 11:30 to 1 for the parking lot picnic. My thanks again to Penny Main and the Minnecasia Chamber of Commerce for helping me, Zeb at the Ranch. We're going to put this on. You sit in your car, you have lunch, they bring it out to you, you pay for it. We're going to honk horns at each other, wave, and say howdy, just like Minnie Pearl. It's going to be a lot of fun. Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, this Thursday from 11:30 to 1. Be there. Don't miss it. I've got to take another drink of water. I'll turn it over to Wheels and go to the CBS News. And a good morning and welcome back to Zeb at the Ranch on this Tuesday, May the 12th, and brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations are open and serving you with a very safe, clean environment and the best in tires. Your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. Along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, Greystone Crossing, senior living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. What a beautiful place. I really, really want you to write this number down. Got a pen? Okay, here we go. Don't have paper? Write it on the back of your hand. Just don't wash your hand. 650-4979. That number again, 650-4979. Set up an appointment for Matt and Kelly Wiggins to show you all around the beautiful Greystone Crossing. 12-bedroom home where they provide 3 meals a day, housekeeping, snacks, local transportation, all of this and more at Greystone Crossing Senior Living, 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Want to also comment quickly about 7K Metals. Yes, we've been involved. I say we, Deanne and I. Have been involved with 7K Metals now for about 3 months, and you can help yourself build your own financial security and future through silver purchases with 7K Metals. These are people that really are knowledgeable, and it's a great saving opportunity for you and a valued treasure for your loved ones. So, again, I urge you to invest in financial security with silver. Contact Lon Hardy at 312-8699 or Sharon Wilmot at 430-3259. Tell them I told you to call. They'll help you at 7K Metals. Wheels, could we please have the good word on the May 19th primary?
Idaho's primary election is on Tuesday, May 19th. Here's Senator Kelly Anthon to explain this year's voting by mail.
The outcome of every election we have is determined by who shows up to vote. This year, Idaho's primary election is a mail-in only election. It's not ideal, and it's not the way we'd like to do it. But your vote does make a difference for all of us in Idaho. So please, first request a ballot, then mail it in, and make your voice heard. This message is paid for by the Anthon for Idaho Senate campaign.
And by the way, I want to wish the very best to Senator Kelly Anthon. He's under the weather, and we're going to get another report on how he's doing health-wise. But your prayers and cards and concern for Kelly Anthon are appreciated. A good man, and we certainly hope he's up and around in no time at all. Right now, let's go on the phone to the man that is the one, the only Doctor of History, Dr. History.
Morning, Zeb. How you doing?
Well, we're hanging on. We're at a little bit lower level on the power than we like. It may be a little hard to hear you this morning, but we'll do our best. And what's going on in the world of historical stories and the memories of the past?
Okay, we're going to go back a long ways back, a little over 200 years.
Oh, your birthday.
1792.
Oh, okay.
All right. So there's a mysterious young American, and he was experiencing a world that as yet had been unnamed and unimagined. And this was, a dozen years before Lewis and Clark started their expedition.
Okay.
But this bold American adventurer, he was only 20 years old, had just spent 2 years traveling and living with the people of one of the most remote and least known western regions of this continent. And exactly what Philip Nolan did and where he went in 1791 and 1792 is kind of hard to really figure out exactly, but we do know that he was a native of Natchez, and that he had secured a passport and trading license from the Spanish governor of Louisiana and Florida. Now, otherwise, his adventure exists only in kind of the barest outline. He followed in the footsteps of French traders from Louisiana who had made their way into the villages like those at the Mandan and the Hidatsas and on the Missouri, and then even as far west as the Comanches. But if we accept the sketchy references to this adventure, this Nolan, Philip Nolan, favorably impressed the Comanches, and it was a people with highly developed regard for the kind of the masculine virtues with American wilderness skills, and the Comanches in turn showed Nolan a country that hardly any Euro-Americans had seen. And he was deep in the plains where they traveled. So the early 1790s seldom springs to mind when we consider important periods in the history of the American West, but for the southern stretches of the West, Nolan's barely known trip would prove significant indeed. What had drawn Philip Nolan west in the first place was a dream of wealth. But in his case, it wasn't gold or precious metals or even beaver, furs, things like that. Horses are what interested him, and feral horses that over the previous century had spread all across the Southwest. Now, the French, Spanish traders in Louisiana had shown Nolan how to build corrals and to catch these, the Spanish word I think is mestinos, or wild ones, mustangs. And Nolan was becoming good at it, but after 2 years with the Comanches, he'd come to understand that just as traders in the north could barter with the Indians for the furs, American traders didn't have to build pens and corral the wild herds. They could just go buy horses and mules that did so well on the southern frontier directly from the Comanches. So they didn't have to go out and hunt them. And the Comanches had so many animals that they were said, quote, to us like grass. In other words, they had so many horses, they didn't know what to do with all of them. But that information, along with the skills he developed running and corralling wild horses, was all Nolan needed. He would mount a second expedition into the country he called the Great Plains in 1794-95, and a third one in 1795-96. And when he returned from his third trip, Nolan took 250 Mustangs all the way to Frankfort, Kentucky, where his striking western animals brought as much as $150 a piece. That was in 1797. I mean, 150, that would have been a lot of money back then.
Absolutely.
But he was set on doing a fourth expedition, and he had $7,000 in trade goods, and this time he returned in 1798, and they were driving a herd estimated between 1,000 to 2,500 horses. Well, Philip Nolan was on his way to becoming a legend. He'd begun something destined to outlive him by decades. But anyway, with the first 2-year journey that he went on, he actually got clear out here by the Rocky Mountains, and he became known as the Mexican Traveler. And he'd actually launched one of the kind of intriguing yet little-known big stories in the history of the early American West. And I'm going to bet hardly anybody's heard of this guy named Philip Nolan.
No, I have not. I had not.
But the early Western horse trade has remained little known for several good reasons. For one thing, during the period when Spain was still hanging on to the Southwest until the success of the Mexican War of Independence in 1821, in other words, removal of wild horses was illegal without having Spanish authority or permission. So in the 1780s, Spain had proclaimed all these horses to be the property of the king. Well, nevertheless, American horse traders who followed in Nolan's footsteps never bothered to get either a passport or license from the Spanish authorities, and eventually the horse trade would acquire kind of a bad reputation for supplying Indians with guns and encouraging raiding. And so for nearly its entire history, the Western horse trade was kind of an underground economy carried on by people who largely did not want to draw attention to themselves. Well, when the Pueblo Revolt of 1680 drove the Spaniards out of New Mexico, the Navajos, the Utes, the Shoshones, the Salish, the Nez Perce, Blackfeet, Crow, Cayuses, Crees, throughout the northwestern Canada, they had all these horses, and a lot of them escaped out just to run wild. Now, another source of wild horses in the Southwest were the abandoned early missions of Texas, from which the Franciscans, the monks, turned out both mares and stallions. So there again, you've got a source where you're going to get a lot of horses. So the wild horse herds by Nolan's time had grown to huge, huge numbers. And one mid-19th century Texas rancher reported, he said, quote, immense herds all over the western country as far as the eye or telescope can sweep the horizon. The whole country seemed to be running. And then there was a Texas ranger, his name was John Duval, and he said, quote, nothing over the dead level prairie was visible except a dense mass of horses, and the trampling of their hooves sounded like the roar of the surf on the rocky coast. Now, Zeb, I heard of wild horses, but I didn't realize that there's such a huge amount, thousands and thousands.
No, I hadn't either. I have a question for you, if you don't mind, because you know everything, okay? Now, didn't you say that this man, Philip Nolan, sold earlier, you were talking, I think, 1,500 head of horses, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said he sold them for $150 a head, right?
Right.
Okay. So we're talking $225,000, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In those days, my question is, where did they get the money? Where did they have the available funds? They didn't just go down to a local bank and draw on a check or whatever. Where did they go to get all the money and the funding?
You know, I have no idea because, you know, he took them to sell, and maybe there was just enough buyers that they all bought a little here and a little there until they got them all sold. So that is a huge amount. That, you know, but you know, a lot of the Indian people participated in the horse trade too. But when American traders entered the game, the Comanches, they kind of controlled and put their stamp on it. And through the 18th century, they effected a kind of a cultural and economic transformation, becoming not just bison hunters and raiders, but the most horse people in all of the Western history.
Mm-hmm.
The Comanches, they caught, they bred, and raided for horses, and they managed to get bigger and bigger herds. And when Americans first encountered the Comanches, they were absolutely amazed at the number of horses and mules that they owned. But they also traded them north to horse-poor tribes up in the northern part, and they would give them away to try to make friends with, like, the Kiowas, the Cheyennes, the Wichitas. But about this time, Vice President Jefferson first heard about Philip Nolan and his wild horses, and he was convinced he needed to meet this man. So in 1799, Jefferson wrote Nolan asking to buy one of his, quote, Western animals, and which he says, I am told are so remarkable for the singularity and beauty of their colors and forms. Well, in May of 1800, Nolan actually left for Monticello with letters of introduction and a beautiful paint stallion for this future president. Well, something went wrong. Possibly somebody in Kentucky offered Nolan more money for the paint than he could refuse. Or maybe he lost the horse in gambling, who knows. But however close they got, Nolan and Jefferson never did actually meet. Well, that fall, Nolan left on his fifth wild horse expedition. So now we're in 1800, headed out west. And before leaving Natchez, he had 24 good men and was taking a big quantity of trade goods. This time, however, he did not have a passport or permission from the Spanish officials. This was not good. So to Nolan's favorite Mustanging country south of present-day Fort Worth, Texas, this is where they built some corrals, and they began to run horses in what they called the Grand Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
So now, in March of 1801, a Spanish force sent out to arrest him. They located his camp, and Nolan refused to surrender. Well, the Spaniards attacked, and a single shot hit Nolan square in the forehead.
Uh-oh.
That pretty much put an end to his dreams and everything else. The Spaniards captured more than a dozen of Nolan's men, although 7 of them actually did escape. But Nolan's adventures were over, but word had gotten out. The West had a wealth in the form of horses. It was dangerous business, and Nolan, of course, lost his life, and others had been arrested. But he and his group had actually made, in one herd, just $60,000 on just one smaller herd. So, you know, it's that for this part of early history, the horse trading remained kind of an underground economy. They kind of had to sneak in and get the horses and get back out.
Well, I think it goes without question that if people really are fair and honest in giving an appraisal of what really helped build this nation, it was the horse. Whether it was the eastern seaboard with all the carriage horses and the pack horses and everything else that was used to get transportation from the seaports inland, or whether it was the Old West with the mountain men going all the way to the cattle ranching, etc. The horse honestly built this great country, the United States of America.
Well, and if you think about the Lewis and Clark expedition,
yes,
you know, they were saved by the fact that they were finally able to get some horses and be able to continue their journey.
That's right.
So.
And you know, the horse business itself is still, I believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think it is the 3rd largest agricultural industry in the United States, the horse industry. I think it's still up there with all the different attractions to it. So, I mean, we're very blessed to have a strong horse industry.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And, you know, while the West, these early Mustangers and horse traders, you know, they kind of kept a low profile. Some of their stories and adventures have come down to us. In fact, one in 1794-95, there was a 27-year-old guy, a Philadelphia gunsmith named John Calvert, and he spent 14 months chasing horses with the Wichitas and the Comanches before a Spanish patrol snagged him. But 2 horse traders from this era kind of stand apart, because they actually left first-hand accounts of their experiences in a journal, this one guy in 10-month expedition in 1808 and 9, a guy by the name of Anthony Glass, he described the sort of adventure that probably Nolan had years before. But he left a fascinating kind of a representation of the horse trader's life. He described the difficulties of bartering with the Wichitas and the Comanches, and you know, they didn't want to trade their best horses. It took a bit of ingenuity to trade with the Indians. Now, the other account comes from a horse trader. His name is Thomas James, and he wrote a book called 3 Years Among the Indians and Mexicans, and this describes his 2 trips into the Oklahoma Plains. Now, that's a little later, between 1821 and 1824. But there's no guarantee the Comanches wouldn't immediately steal back the horses that you just traded for. So, you know, you didn't know once you took off if a few days down the road you were going to get attacked, or, you know, and those horses would all come back.
Of all the tribes, Dr. History, I've got to ask you this. Of all the tribes of Indians in the United States, it has been asserted that the Comanches were absolutely the greatest horsemen of all time. I'm sure you've probably heard that.
Yeah. And, of course, you look at the different breeds, and, you know, of course, the Nez Perce with their Appaloosas.
Right.
You know, I mean, amazing horses. But, you know, this James, Thomas James, like I say, he had gotten some horses, and they had a herd of 323 really nice animals, and they started back to St. Louis, but a horse trader needed a little bit of luck, and this guy seemed fresh out of luck. He had disasters, he had stampedes, hordes of horseflies, theft, one thing after another. By the time the party made St. Louis, they had 5 horses.
5?
They had 5 horses left out of 323.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Wow. You know, I was really not aware of all the different trail drives, if you will, of horses going back into the center of our country, Missouri, St. Louis area, whatever it is. Are there more reports about many more of the capture and the trailing of horses back to the eastern part of the country?
You know, when you think about trailing animals, you really don't hear much about horse herds being, by the thousands being taken, But, in the 1880s, they estimated that there was at least 50,000 wild horses still living, in West Texas. And, it gradually, of course, got less and less. But, in fact, there was a point where ranchers actually paid their cowboys to shoot some of these horses on site because they were taking up cattle grazing land.
That's right. That's right.
It was a fascinating thing. Of course, we still have wild horses down in the Nevada area, and there's a little controversy on that. But anyway, as a horse lover, you and I, we cannot stand the thought of a horse being shot or mistreated.
Well, yeah, that's all well and good, but then on the other hand, mistreatment is a two-way street to where if they're taking away forage and food that is paid for by the ranchers and desecrating and depriving the livestock of their daily dues to survive, then there's got to be some management to get them off that range.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I've read some things about lately in the later 1900s, that 1945, 1970, 76, that there's things going on to kind of care for these animals. So.
Well, it takes a lot of money, my friend, and money does rule the world, unfortunately.
Well, and with cattle, you can eat a cow, but at least I've never eaten a horse, I don't think.
Well, just don't go to France. Okay. Listen, great.
Have the chance, but I make sure that what I'm eating is not a horse.
All right. Well, listen, I want to tell you how much I enjoyed your story. And any word from, you said, I've got a minute left, but you said every week you wanted to thank various people and acknowledge various people. Do you have anybody today?
I do not. I haven't heard from anybody this past week. And so, just go to dr-history.com and send me a message. And I appreciate Actually, I just met a man here just a few minutes ago here that has some information about the town of Bliss and also a book on the post offices of southern Idaho.
Oh, okay.
They're no longer in existence, some of these little post offices that were around,
All right.
He's going to give me that information.
Well, I tell you what, you always do a phenomenal job, and you can tune in every week, ladies and gentlemen, right here on Zeb at the Ranch and listen to Dr. History. And I want to thank you very much. Next week, let's try to see if we can't entertain thoughts of being in the same studio. It's a lot more fun than being on the phone.
Yep.
All right, my friend.
We'll just have to see what happens.
All right. God bless you, man. Thanks much.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. Really appreciate him. Dr. History on the air with us this morning. Thank you very much. Don't forget, every Monday, of course, at 10:30, it's Vicky's Country Garden. How does your garden grow? Well, I'll tell you what, if you got problems, she can help. Vicky at Vicky's Country Garden. Don't forget, they're located at 185 South, 600 West of Paul. Every Monday right here on Zeb at the Ranch, Vicky's Country Garden. Don't forget, give them a call, 438-5663. Want to also acknowledge our dear friends at Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley, with Curtis and Lorena and the staff. And they're open Monday through Saturdays, 9 to 6. And they are taking votes for your local charity. And the top two, there's going to be a $1,000 donation to the charities, $500 each to the top two, whether it's Veterans of Foreign Wars, Magic Valley Humanitarian Center, Family Health Services, USDA Rural Development, United Way of South Central Idaho, all of this. And it's going to be starting in June with the June purchases at Patterson's Electronics. So heads up on that. It's just a couple of weeks away. The electronics specialist, Patterson's at 421 East Main in Burley. And, of course, they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. Stop in and see them today or give them a call, 678-6997. Right now, we're going to send this back over to my itty-bitty buddy Wheels, and we'll be back in about 4 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb.
Oh, it's been a fun morning, I'll tell you, and we're going to continue the frivolity by telling you all about our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more. Don't forget 459 Overland and Burley with Jeff and the whole crew. Oh, my! Open for business on regular hours. No appointments needed. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 10 to 5, 40 to 50% off on everything in the store. I mean, you talk about doing spring cleaning. They want to help you beautify and comfortize your home. So please stop in and see them today. It'll be a treat for you. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more at 459 Overland in Burley. Oh, hey, here's something for everybody to pay attention to. There's a business I know and I'm going to share with you that absolutely is for sale, lock, stock, and barrel. Absolutely. Turnkey operation. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair at 635 21st Street in Heyburn. Holy cow. I mean, excuse me, a brand new shop, all the material, all the equipment, everything. Like I said, a turnkey business ready for you. And Doug will train the buyer, the business, rebuilding all the starters and the repair and everything. Hey, you can't beat that. Call them. Find out more. 878-4991 or 431-5282. For sale. Call today. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, 635 21st Street in Heyburn. Well, my next guest, I bet she felt like a yo-yo earlier this morning. On the air, off the air, on the air, off the air. Kelly Sadler is the communications director at American First Action and a former special assistant to President Donald Trump, and she's a very nice lady. Kelly, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well.
Well, thank you for being so helpful to us this morning. We didn't know for sure if we were going to have the program on the air this morning with transmitter trouble. Tell me a little bit, and my audience, if you will, about America First Action. What do you do, and what is it?
Yeah, so we are the official PAC for the president's reelect. We are, focusing on the battleground states. So Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Ohio. Really kind of looking at looking in these states and trying to get the president reelected really as a governor. We're looking at local issues. What are the main, pressure points in these states, and where does the president have his greatest strengths, so we can highlight those, as well as Joe Biden's weaknesses.
All that being said, Kelly, I'm going to make a statement to you, and then you can think I'm a redneck radical. You can call me whatever you want, but I'm going to go ahead and say this. With all the absolute devastating events that have happened to this president from the get-go, whether it was the Mueller report, Russia, 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 or whether it was the possible impeachment over a very, very innocuous phone call to the Ukraine, impeach, and then when that was thrown out and the dust had just started to settle, the virus came into play. These things just seem to happen too much like a domino effect, and I have a raised eyebrow because I'm questioning. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there's no question that this president has been through more in the first, 3.5 years than any other president in the United States. The mainstream media was out to get him, couldn't believe that he won the election. more evidence is pouring out that the Obama administration knowingly spied on his campaign and tried to frame General Flynn in the process as they transitioned into the White House. Then you've had the impeachment, and it's been one thing after the other. But this president, he perseveres, and he has gotten so much done for the American public. He ran a campaign built on several promises, moving the capital of Israel to Jerusalem. He delivered. Of renegotiating trade deals, he's delivered. He's renegotiated several around the world. Most recently, the USMCA deal with Canada and Mexico. He has gotten us out of the endless foreign wars. He's withdrawn troops from Afghanistan. He's gotten us out of the JCPOA, just like he said he would, and put pressure on Iran. This president has taken a hard stance against China. He used tariffs as a negotiating weapon with them, and came out with a Phase 1 trade deal. So this president has accomplished so much, even though he's been under so much scrutiny, and the mainstream media is relentless in their constant negative narratives with him, and the Democrats are relentless in trying to get him out of office. And I feel right now that they're using this time of a worldwide pandemic to score political points against the president. And I just think it's really disgusting how they never let a good crisis go to waste. Their words, not mine.
And that's really the truth. I've never seen anything so despicable in my life. And in fairness, and taking a non-prejudicial viewpoint over this president versus other presidents in the past, whether it's Obama, Bush, doesn't make any difference. I have never seen total 100% negativity by most of the media every day, 24/7. They will not say one decent word about this man or his first lady, Melania. Nothing. It's always got to be negative.
Yeah, and now they're rooting for this country's failure. Really, I mean, when you see the headlines of, if the president doesn't reopen the economy, then it's the millions that are going to be unemployed in the economic devastation. If he does reopen the economy, then it's going to be the millions that are going to die from the coronavirus. He's got blood on his hands. I mean, in many ways, this president, no matter what he does, he's damned if he does, he's damned if he doesn't. There isn't any sort of fair and balanced reporting on him, but this has been, it's been this way since 2015.
Well, Kelly, I'm glad you brought up this point about the damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. The situation is such right now, and I made the comment earlier this morning, and I'll stand behind it. I'm blunt on this program, and I'm going to tell it the way I feel it is. We being the United States of America, cannot close up shop again. In other words, if this virus does not go away and it has a second surge, we cannot close up this government again, or it will be the end of America as we know it. How would you respond to that?
Well, we need to reopen this economy, and we need to do it safely and responsibly. I mean, right now you've got 1 in 5 Americans who are unemployed, and they're not unemployed through any fault of their own. We had the world's best economy, in January and February, and then the president had to shut it down so the virus could be contained, so that the hospitals could bulk up on the equipment that they needed, and our healthcare system wouldn't be overrun. That was the whole point of flattening the curve. We have done that. Even in states like New York, who have experienced the worst of this, their hospitals are not being overrun. So that was the bargain that millions of Americans signed up for, and now it's time for us to, re-engage in our quote-unquote normal lives. It's not going to go back to the way things were before. We're still going to probably have to social distance, and restaurants won't be as crowded, but it's essential to so many small businesses, small business owners across America, and those of us who want to go and work to be able to do so, because there's not enough, the government does not have enough money to take care of all of us being unemployed. And now they're talking about, Nancy Pelosi's talking about, a $2,000 check a month for every individual. The government doesn't have the capacity nor the money to kind of buy our way out of this crisis. We are a consumer-based economy. We're an entrepreneurial economy, and you never can bet against us Americans. And we will rebuild this, and we will come out of this better than ever before.
You know, I've said this on my program many times ever since the beginning of March, that we as a nation right now are being forced into, oh, the sky is falling. What if? What if? What if? When in reality, we should be more concerned about what is. In other words, we have a lot of people that are losing their businesses. A lot of people are losing their marriages. And very unfortunately, the suicide rate is extremely high, all because of what is. We need to get back to work and pay more attention to that instead of worrying about the what ifs.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. There's risk that we as Americans face every single day. And we've got to take that on and be unafraid. I mean, if we're looking, we know a lot more about this virus than we did, several months ago. We know that the younger population, for example, they're not immune to it, but they're a lot less susceptible in getting it. We know that the older population, those above 60, 65, are more susceptible to get it. But we also know that this is occurring where all the deaths are occurring mostly out of nursing homes, and bad policies put in place by governors, like Andrew Cuomo, for example, telling older people that they couldn't go to the hospitals but go to a nursing home, and just letting this kind of fly through the nursing home. As of this year, the COVID-19 deaths from age 4 or under since February 1st for children are 6. The flu deaths are 44. So we go out every day, and I don't want to compare COVID-19 to the flu because I know the backlash that you get from that, but the flu is much more deadly based on CDC statistics than COVID-19 is. And so part of our reopening should be getting these schools back opened up, because we know that this population is a lot less prone to get this and to spread this. And the first step of reopening our economy is getting our kids back to work so the parents can get back to work.
Absolutely. Kelly, I need to ask you, you've worked with the president as a former special assistant. I don't think America, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I don't think America really knows the president personally. They don't really know the ins and outs, his likes and dislikes, etc., like they did perhaps with, I'll go as far back as John F. Kennedy, or maybe Ronald Reagan with his ranch and his horses and everything. But what about President Trump? What do you know about the president that maybe you could share with my audience?
Well, he's a very generous and compassionate man, and that side of him is not shown that much in the press or by the press. He empowers his staff, he trusts and he listens, and, what everyone does know about him, but is very true, is that he's a deal maker. He's a businessman at heart, and everything that he does, he's looking at a step of how do we make this country better? How do we make these negotiations, or like everything to him is a bit transactional, but it's all for the benefit of this country. And I think he's seeing the numbers now, the economic numbers, and just what you mentioned, the fact is that people staying at home are more prone to use alcohol, are more prone to use opioids. There's been, domestic violence claims have spiked. And for a lot of small business owners, seeing their businesses go under is worse than death itself to them. And the president identifies with this, and he feels this, and he wants nothing more than to get this country back up and working again. But he knows that he's got to do it in a safe and responsible manner, and he's proceeding exactly, on that path.
There's another person I'd like you to elaborate on a little bit, and I think she's been absolutely looked over and has had negative things said about her. A very beautiful, very stately woman, and that's Melania, the First Lady. What could you tell my audience about her?
Well, she's glamorous. And she's beautiful. She's more striking in person than she is in her photos, and I know that's hard to imagine. She's so statuesque. And is always wearing the most beautiful clothing. But despite that, I think yesterday was her 2-year anniversary of her Be Best campaign, and she spends a lot of time with children and visiting with children, and that's where her heart is. And she's a wonderful mother. She's protected Barron from the spotlight and negative criticism. She's very protective of him. Is also very engaged in his education, and she's a wonderful, loving mother. And another thing that she's done, and she's worked so hard on, is battling with the opioid crisis. And before the pandemic struck, she was visiting hospitals all over America, dealing with children that were born with this addiction through no fault of their own, but also working with people who had recovered from it. And some of the first responders on the front lines. So she's also very influential. The president listens to her, and she is one of his closest, if not most influential advisors in the West Wing and within the White House.
Okay, now, Kelly, I'm down to the last few minutes in our interview, but I've got to ask you that the other day, I believe it was a week ago Monday, I was reading and studying polls that were coming out in the battleground states like Michigan and some of the other Midwestern states that were showing, and please, the good Lord above help me how this could possibly be, showing that Joe Biden was ahead of Donald Trump. In the basement, Joe was ahead of Donald Trump by as many as 5 and 6 percentage points. How in the world can that be?
Well, I don't put any credence in any of these polls. This time in 2016, Hillary Clinton was beating the president by double digits in Wisconsin and Michigan, and was up by 8 or 9 points in Pennsylvania, and we all know how that turned out. So we have 6 months left in this campaign. That's an eternity, really, in campaigning time, and Joe Biden is going to have to come out of his bunker eventually and to go back on the campaign trail. And if there's one thing that we've learned about Joe Biden on the campaign trail is that he's just not very good, and I don't know if he has the stamina or endurance to like this president does, and that will be seen and shown more and more as he ventures out of his basement.
I don't know if you want to speculate on this or not, Kelly, and I don't mean to paint you into a corner, but I would like an answer to it. Joe Biden, every time he's on some kind of media, whether it's radio, television, or even in print, he makes so many gaffes and makes so many mistakes to where you just can't imagine this man carrying the briefcase with all the power in the world, Joe Biden as president. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Would you comment on that or not?
It doesn't make any sense to me either. And I think the Democratic Party is kind of scared too. They prefer him in his basement, not getting out or doing interviews, because they can protect him. I think that he's going to be an empty vessel, and the Democrats are using him to put whatever their pet policies are forward, and just use his presidency as, a second Obama presidency, but even more radical with the socialist ideals.
Kelly, you got to make a promise. You got to promise to come back in the future. You did an outstanding job.
Well, thanks so much for having me on this morning, and I'm glad to be on after the yo-yo, what has happened earlier.
I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Communications Director of America First Action, and that's Kelly Sadler. God bless you, Kelly. I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Very nice lady, very knowledgeable lady right there, talking about President Donald Trump and the re-election. I certainly hope. We better do the weather. And the weather is brought to you this hour by our friends at Scarro's Meats. Don Scarrow and the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. Oh, delicious meats. I'm telling you, whether it's the hams or the prime ribs, or whether it's the ribeyes or whatever it might be, tri-tips, all the delicious bacons, etc. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. It's all great. It's all delicious for you and your family at Scarro's Meats. Check it out on their website, scarrowsmeats.com. Number to call, 324-7657. Scarro's Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. And caller, I'll be with you in a second. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We've got a storm system moving in, and it's going to hang around for the rest of the week. Here's a look at your weather forecast. By this afternoon, looks like showers and thunderstorms are going to be the norm. Partly sunny skies. We are expecting a high of 68. Winds could gust as high as 25 miles an hour by tonight. Mostly cloudy skies with a low right around 44. Gusts as high as 28 miles an hour. By tomorrow, 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms by the afternoon. Mostly cloudy skies. Still going to be windy. High of 61 with an overnight low of 44. Thursday looks like rain showers, at least for most of the day. 50% chance of showers, maybe some thunderstorms by the afternoon. Cloudy skies and a high of 62. That's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Gina, thank you very much. Scarrows Meat sponsoring the weather. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time at Scarrows Meats. Give them a call, 324-7657. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I should have called sooner. I wanted to ask her about Michelle Obama potentially being involved in the race somehow. I don't know, whether or not it's Biden's vice president or somehow she ends up being the nominee. I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. And so, but now that we have these, the transcripts are, released, that we know that Obama was orchestrating this thing from the get-go. We knew it, but, this is, the evidence is pretty, substantial. So, will that affect whether or not she decides to run as a running mate or not? I don't know.
Well, you bring up a lot of good questions here, and at first the initial reaction was that he was going to be looking at definitely a woman of color, and so there had been talk about this loony former attempted at governor in Georgia, Stacey Abrams, and that would be a Looney Tunes choice for anybody's ticket or party. And then, of course, there was talk about Elizabeth Warren. And the list goes on. And then, of course, yesterday they came out and said Kamala Harris. But you know something, Randy? I agree with you. I have not at all ruled out that in order to save and salvage a shortened Biden presidency, which it would be, I honestly believe, I think they're still going to try to draft Michelle Obama into the fold. That's my thinking.
Well, I wonder, I guess he's so untouchable, Obama, and she's supposed to be as clean as a whistle. And you wonder just how far it would go. I mean, does the fact that these transcripts, the evidence points directly towards Barack?
Yep.
You just see, in a country where you wonder if these people will ever care, will ever inform themselves, will ever be proactive enough to just, save their republic or their, the constitutional republic. I don't know. Are they going to save their country, or they're all just going to take their $2,000?
I think the answer to that is, well,
phone and their TV, and they have food. Some of these people don't even want to come out of their house anymore, Zeb.
I know it, and it's a crying shame that has to be rectified. But as far as the political swamp back in Washington, D.C., I think you're going to be seeing the alligators turn on the alligators in the next few weeks. I think we're going to see some devastating stories come out about the Obama administration. I wished you'd have called sooner, but my goodness, I appreciate your call. I got to run, Randy, but thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just been hectic, and yes, thank you, bye.
All right, buddy, thanks. Don't forget this Thursday, this week, Thursday, we're going to be over at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner, for the parking lot picnic. You better believe it, Penny Main and the Minnecasia Chamber of Commerce and myself, Zeb at the Ranch, we're going to be helping put Denny's back on the map. You better believe it with a parking lot picnic. You drive in, you sit there in the parking spot, they'll come out, they'll say, "Hi, glad you're here," and then they've got a special all made up of a club sandwich and fries and a fountain drink, and I'll tell you what, they'll bring it out to you. Pay for it, eat it, we'll all honk horns at each other. It's going to be a lot of fun. 11:30 to 1 at Denny's Restaurant this Thursday at 611 North Overland in Burley. Don't you miss it. Got to run. Wheels, I want to thank you for all the adversity we had earlier this morning. You came through in the clutch for us, buddy. We appreciate it. And we'll be back tomorrow morning at 8:06. We always end the program by saying the way things were, the way things ought to be, but the 4 words that mean the most: in God we trust. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.